I think we're good. Yeah, I'm with Megan Wilson with Levi's Link, and I think we should just start from the beginning and why Levi's Link and what kind of caused you to see a need there and start Levi's Link.
Well, thank you for having me. Levi's Link is near and dear to myself and my family. Our oldest son, Levi, named the program is named aptly after him. He is currently 12 years old, and at the age of 2, he was diagnosed with autism. Autism is a very long road and journey, but we learned quickly that, to our surprise, medical professionals, while they knew a book diagnosis of autism, they actually don't really know how to work with patients and families with autism. Not saying some do or some don't. I'm not saying that that's a horrible thing, but they actually, without experience of it, they aren't attuned to what might be helpful for families with a patient with autism. So, after a couple of specialist appointments and even a surgery for Levi when he was about 4 or 5, I just, it was so much. And I should preface this by saying my husband, Rob, and I, we will advocate and do whatever we need for Levi. We're not quiet people. When we need something, we take care of it. We find a way, we make it happen. If you tell us it's going to be 6 months, we're going to find another way to do it. Precisely when we needed to get his formal diagnosis, it was like a 2-year wait everywhere. And we basically just put ourselves on every list and we said we would go anywhere across the state as soon as there was an opening. We got in 4 weeks instead of 2 years because we were willing to travel to Grand Rapids instead of stay in Metro Detroit to do so. So Rob and I, it was never whether we were going to get what we needed for Levi. That wasn't a question. But the reality is, we knew that most special needs families don't know how to ask. They're embarrassed to ask, or they just don't go get medical treatment because that's too hard for them to handle for their family or for their loved one that has special needs. So after his surgery, I started doing a little research and a group I'm a part of, and I found out about a program called George's Pass out at Valley Children's Hospital in California. And it is specifically designed in the Children's Hospital for patients with autism. So, they did everything to mark these patients, work with the doctors, work with the administration to make the experience better for children with autism. I knew it was a very, very long shot, but I reached out to McLaren Port Huron when we lived in the area and I said, listen, something needs to be done and I have ideas. And my friend and former coworker Lynn Griefor, who is now at McLaren Greater Lansing, she was the director of the foundation there, and she tried to set my expectations real and tell me that, things don't always work the way you want them to in the medical world. There's a lot of protocol, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of everything that we don't have in, smaller businesses or the worlds that I've worked in before. But she set me up with a couple of wonderful people, and to my utmost surprise and happiness, within a couple of months, we had an entire team working on this program, planning. And within a matter of, I believe, 8 months, we launched the program in 2018 at McLaren Port Huron. So Levi's Link itself is a individualized special needs care program for patients of all ages utilizing McLaren hospitals. There's various now, but it started at Port Huron. It started in the surgical unit, then moved to peds and the ER, and now it is through the entire McLaren Port Huron hospital. So basically, the benefits of Levi's Link is that, number one, it's not just for kids because special needs don't go away. Let's be real. They are a birth to death thing for most special needs families. And the program is there for patients of all ages. And it's not just autism either, like the program I learned about in California. It's all special needs, Down syndrome, autism, sensory processing disorder, you name it. There's so many things that can categorize a patient into the Levi's Link program And that's what we're so thrilled with, that it's all encompassing for special needs. And it really, I mean, it has been such a benefit to both families, the hospital, and medical professionals that I really, I'm I'm so humbled by what it has done for the entire community, not just for what it means for me being able to start something and help this entire population be able to get the medical care their family needs, but to see the benefit that it's made on others who you never would have even thought it would affect them. So the program itself starts at pre-admission generally, obviously not in ER, not in stuff like that, but where it started in surgery when you had something scheduled for a child or a patient, the admissions team would call and go through, all the questions, pre-op, all the history. And one or two questions automatically raise a red flag that, oh, this might be a special needs patient. And when that gets answered, then they go into with the caregiver or parent what might help the patient. Do loud noises or lights bother them? Do crowds bother them? And they kind of get the whole background ahead of time so that it is in their file when they arrive. For Levi's Link patients, we try to make it so that they don't have to experience all the big hustle and bustle of the hospital. So ahead of time, if we know ahead of time they're a Levi's Link patient, we'll provide them with social stories. Both you can get it online in like a print version, or there are video social stories, or even at some of our newer locations, Able Eyes videos showing the facility, which is fantastic. And it really helps the families prepare for their trip to the hospital. Then generally, we try to get the patient back into a more private area where they're going into their hospital room, into an ER room, into a surgical suite, so that they're not around all of the chaos of a hospital. Helps with the sensory side of things a lot. There we provide gaming stations, iPads, sensory toys, dimmed lights. We try to hide all of the medical stuff, if you will, so it's not so overwhelming with cords and IVs if they're not necessary. And we've been very blessed at Port Huron. Just goodness, it's been a year now. It was a long process with COVID and missing parts and things like that. But we actually opened a Levi's Link sensory bay in the surgical wing. So a Levi's Link patient goes to this room and only beforehand and afterwards. And I mean, it's the most calm space. It's got these amazing glass doors where the medical team can see in, but the patient and the family cannot see out. So they feel like their own serene space where they can be calm and quiet and have all of the sensory needs that they need to make it a beneficial experience. We've had patients come in for blood work that have never been able to do blood work, or have a hard time and have to leave. And we now have a handful of patients who come in for blood work. They know exactly what they're doing. They don't need help. They look forward to coming to the hospital. I mean, it's made such a difference. And like I said, it's even beneficial to the practitioners. We've had doctors and dentists that have become affiliated with McLaren simply for the Levi's Link program so that they can be able to treat their special needs patients and know that they're going to get the care that they need. So I mean, that's huge to me that it's really made a difference everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're actually influencing recruiting for McLaren on with this program. I mean, they
Right.
are bringing in more professionals because of this program. So not
Right.
only are you helping patients, you're actually helping the hospital grow because some medical professionals see the value and want to be a part of that.
Right. And the training and the cost of the program, like I say, Levi's Link is not an expensive program, right? It's not building an extra wing of a hospital. It's not, changing everything within a hospital. It's really a lot of common courtesy and simple adjustments. Yes, we provide iPads and gaming stations and sensory toys and little stuffed lions with the lion logo, and he's adorable and cute. And everyone gets one if they're a Levi's Link patient, which is great. But so much of what's important is actually training the doctors, training the nurses, training the team that will be working with the family to be more understanding, to be quieter, to try and provide some of these accommodations that, heck, I don't like going to the hospital. I don't
Right.
like the normal hustle and bustle of the hospital, but I can handle it. You know, taking that extra step to be just a little more kind, courteous, and understanding goes a really long way, and it doesn't cost any money.
Do
It's
you
just
have so training wise, is it you that goes on site and works, or do you have like a team, or do you work with like an outside organization that does that?
so every place is a little bit different. I am involved. I am certainly not staff. My position is all volunteer. It's just me. It's my passion. I love to do it. Um, but what we have done previously, and it passes around, and I think we're going to do some new ones with the new hospitals coming on board that I can talk about in a minute. But in Port Huron, when we first started it, I actually had myself and a couple of Levi's therapy team come, and we did an entire presentation on the different things you'll see with special needs, and it was video recorded, and now it's part of the onboarding program for, so everyone at the hospital has to have watched it and signed off on it, and as soon as there's any new staff members, it's part of their onboard hiring, so they have to watch this video and at least try to understand the basics of what a special needs patient might need and the types of things that you can do to help them feel more comfortable in the hospital setting.
And then as far as hospitals, you've talked a lot about Port Huron because that's where it started. How has it grown through the McLaren system?
So, like I mentioned, Port Huron's the baby. That's where it started. They are the tried and true, the really embracing it in every way of their life. Um, and COVID happened, of course, after it started, and that really slowed things down. I mean, that was a couple of years of really hard times, not
Yeah.
changing things. But the goal has always been to get Levi's Link throughout the McLaren network and maybe someday beyond. But we've now officially grown to McLaren Greater Lansing and McLaren Lapeer. And onboarding this year is McLaren Oxford and McLaren Oakland in Pontiac. So we are thrilled to have the program now in 5 locations, which is I, I can't lie. I mean, of course, there's a part of me that's like, oh, will it ever grow outside of Port Huron? And then suddenly it's growing by leaps and bounds. And I really couldn't be more humbled and honored by it because all we care about is helping to make this a better experience for families like our own. I mean, so many families, even our friends, they don't take their kids or adults to get medical treatment because it's just too hard. And that just breaks my heart because everyone deserves to be able to be treated fairly and accommodated so that they can get medical treatments that they need. So that's my goal for all those who don't know how to ask for precisely what they need. This is a way. And I think that's the biggest thing to note about Levi's Link in particular is it's not that you can't get accommodations at other hospitals. I mean, Levi's had surgery in a couple different places. It just takes a lot of work to get the accommodations that you need in other locations. And I think that's what's so amazing about Levi's Link is it's out there. It's publicized. Everyone knows about it. So even if you're not like pre-admission, if you're going into the ER at McLaren Greater Lansing, McLaren Port Huron, and these others as they come up, you can just walk in and say, my son is a Levi's Link patient. Like it's out there. We're not hiding it. It's not, you have to know precisely what to ask for. All you have to do is say, my son would benefit from Levi's Link, and they'll know and they can help and they can make it a great situation for them and their family. So that I think is the most important part and what's missing in a lot of places. It's not that you couldn't get help or get accommodations. But most people don't know how to ask, so then they're not. And
Yeah,
they either
and
don't go or the situation is horrible.
yeah. Megan's always said, with her experience in the being in the schools, that like a lot of families already have so much on their plate, and just to have to grind through something else, like they're tired, and so they just don't do it. Like,
It's too much. You don't
you know,
want.
you, yeah, I mean, you're talking like a hospital setting. Like there's a lot of families that won't even go to new restaurants because it's too much. Like, and
Exactly.
that's like just going to a restaurant, so or a new park because
Right,
it's
just
just
something
it's
new
new.
because it's difficult to venture and do something new, but I don't want it to be that hard if you don't know what to ask for. I just want it to be helpful. That's it.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Yeah,
Oh,
and you're going into an industry that's not the easiest to change, and you've been able to get traction, and McLaren's a big system. So
it's a big
it's
system.
gonna keep growing though. You know it is because
It's
you already
gonna
see
keep
it
growing.
growing. As
It's
it
gonna
grows, you know that like once you broke out of that Port Huron, it's like now there's traction. And
right.
if I can get into what you mentioned, five, Oakland, Oxford, Lapeer, Lansing, and Port Huron, like it's going to keep moving. You've done it. It's
Absolutely, and there's others already interested in it, but you can only onboard so many at a time, right?
Yep.
So I love that the interest is there from even more than the 5 that we've got going right now, and I just keep seeing it growing, and that's an amazing thing. It's really humbling. That's honestly the best way I can put it. It's probably my pride and joy. I love my family. I love all the things that we've been able to accomplish, but Levi's Link and then the Levi's Link run that my husband and I created to fund the program. I mean, they're everything. I mean, it's our passion. It's what we do.
So you just mentioned funding.
Yep.
So you do a race.
Yeah.
How else do you guys fund this program, and how does that?
It's
I mean, does the hospital lean on you basically to fund this thing and then they implement it, or is there kind
not
of
that
a
they
co-op?
lean on us, but we, for the most part, are the sole fundraisers other than particular donations that have made it to the hospital or, via different avenues. Um, so we created the run the same year the program launched. So we have our 8th run this coming May. And my husband has very we have a very supportive group that supports us, supports what we do, family, friends, industry partners, you name it. So we have been able to fundraise a very large amount of money in the last 8 years, which was great at the beginning. It all went to Port Huron. That's how we got the mascot costume. That's how we got big bulk lions created, things like that. The hard part is that now that we have more coming on board, that large amount really isn't necessarily going to spread the same way. It's
Yep.
not going to be enough to fully fund every outlet that we have Levi's link in. So I think as things grow, each hospital will have to, create something on their own. I mean, we've even done a wine dinner and we're talking about doing like a bourbon tasting and doing different fun things in different areas so that there can be individual fundraisers. And my husband and I will absolutely continue to create and promote and do these things in addition to the run. Um, but it is going to take more as the program grows. We can't solely create all the fundraisers to do so. But I mean, in McLaren Greater Lansing, they do employee funding for different causes where employees can choose. And Levi's Link was one of the beneficiaries for that one time. They did Cocktails for a Cause this past fall for
I
McLaren
saw that.
thing, and
Yeah,
Levi
yeah, I saw
was a
that.
beneficiary of that. So that
Okay, cool.
helped the Greater Lansing area with their funding to make sure they can have all the things that they need for their program. We're talking about, I talked about the sensory bay that's in Port Huron because obviously those are pricier things, of course. But we'd really love to see a sensory bay in the surgical area and or the ER in all of the locations because that's a really beneficial thing. So that will require additional funding and hopefully hospital support too, because as the program grows and both patients and physicians realize the benefit of it, hopefully it will be a natural draw for people to want to support.
Yeah, I mean, just when you look at like data and statistics, I mean the percentage of individuals now with the disabilities gotten,
So
I think,
high.
yeah, I think we just when we just launched our new page for Able View, which is our other company. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I want to say like the percentage Megan had on there was like 20%, 26% of the population now
A quarter
has
of our population
some
has
form
some.
of disability. So it's like, I mean, it's a huge number.
It is.
And if you're not creating an environment for 26% of the population, like
You're missing out. I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's huge.
it's huge. That's exactly it. It's huge. You're missing out. And you might be able to say, "Oh, well," but most industries can't. Most industries
Yeah, and at
be
the
able
end of the at
to.
at the end of the day, what you're doing is to help people, but I think these hospitals and all businesses really need to look at it and say, "Hey, this is gonna help people," but, um, we're a business, and if we're not doing these types of things, people are gonna go find other places that are,
Absolutely.
and, you know, I we have another hospital in Lansing, right? I mean, now it's
Right?
owned by University of Michigan, but,
Right, but I mean,
people are gonna go, "I'm not gonna go to Michigan, I'm not going to Sparrow because I want this program," and that's I mean, at the end of the day, patients are what drives the revenue for these hospitals, so people
absolutely,
are gonna start going to places that offer services like this.
absolutely, and that's all we can ask for as it continues to grow is to continue to provide that individualized care that helps families feel comfortable to go there. I mean,
Yeah,
I never would have thought when our family moved from Port Huron, down to the Rochester area, I actually never thought we'd use Levi's Link. I'm saying that honestly and humbly because I didn't live in the area anymore. And like I said, Rob and I will advocate wherever we are, whatever we need to do for Levi. But 2 years ago, Levi needed his tonsils out, and we went back to Port Huron and we used Levi's Link. I
yeah,
mean, I'm not saying they all know me, okay? So that's great in and of itself.
yeah.
But
You
to see
drove an
how
hour
the
and 15.
program really works because most of the doctors and everyone don't know me. They don't know Levi. Only the nurses right there really knew and the team that knew me. And of course, they stopped by to see us. But to see how it works for those that don't know that that was actually Levi. Okay, here's Levi, Levi's Link. This is
Yeah,
him. For those that didn't know it was him and our family, I really got to see the benefit of the program. And for sure, I'd go back. I'd drive an hour and 15 minutes to make sure I had that kind of care instead of going elsewhere.
yep, and people are gonna be doing that. So,
Right.
yep. Um, is there anything that we missed that that you would like to cover?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
think um without going into too much detail, because I could talk for hours on Levi's Link because it's so near and dear to me. I think it's so important to note that it really is the first of its kind program in the state. And it's remarkable that it provides individualized care to families of all ages of disabilities. I mean, it's remarkable. And it's such a high need in our world, like we talked about. And I'm so proud. I know every single person who has worked on Levi's Link over the years. We're all so proud of what the program has accomplished, and we can't wait to see where it goes in the next 5 years.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on with me. We really appreciate it.